Howdy guys, Bookie Laura here. Now this week I have been taking part in ShakeTube once again. For those of you who don't know, ShakeTube is a read-along which has been organised by some guys on BookTube. Basically for the past absolute tonload of weeks they've been reading a Shakespeare play a week and then uploading on the Friday the reaction video to this. This week's play was Macbeth, which I was very excited about, and this is my reaction. So as you've probably seen from the thumbnail, I actually read a graphic novel version of Macbeth. I have really enjoyed taking part in ShakeTube, but I have found it, particularly when I'm at work, I have found the time required to dedicate to reading a Shakespeare play I've found quite difficult. And over recent weeks my head just hasn't been in the game. So I've still wanted to take part, particularly with Macbeth, because I read Macbeth when I was at school and I was really excited about it, but I knew that I was going to struggle to read the play in its original glory. So when I went to the library recently, I saw this version of it and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And I'm really glad that I did. I last week read a version of King Lear, which was a manga rather than just a graphic novel, and something about that I didn't get along with. The sort of time era that they'd set it in just didn't make sense for me, and I found it very difficult to get my head round. This is just basically Shakespeare in a graphic novel, and actually this version they do 3 different sets, so you can get it with the original text, you can get it with plain text, or you can get it with quick text. This was the only version that my library had. It's in quick text, which basically means, and I think it sums it up at the end, where they take the Shakespearean language. That's obviously the original text version. The plain text version is where they simplify it, so they take the entire play but they simplify it into modern day language. And then the quick text version, which I have got, is where it's kind of a condensed version, so they take everything, simplify it and condense it, and the idea is to try and get the play across in as simple a way as possible, and I feel like it really achieves that. It is your sort of standard graphic novel. It tells the story largely through pictures, and actually where I haven't got along with graphic novels before, I actually found it was a real strength and made this play really interesting to me, because I think a lot of the sort of subtext and hidden meanings and more complicated stuff that I often miss in Shakespeare, I was able to really get through the images. A lot of the emotion and the sort of descent into madness that Macbeth goes through, I was able to really clearly see portrayed through his facial expressions, for example, rather than where I've read previously, and I found that quite difficult. You know, that when you're faced with a picture like this, you can see what he's thinking, and it really did make it sort of quite in your face for me. When I read King Lear, I said that actually what I had hoped it would do would make me feel that if I read the play in its original form, that I would then be able to access it. And I feel like this really did that. I almost wish now that I had a copy of the play and the time and the inclination to read it in its original form, because I feel like, okay, now I get the plot, I get the basic idea of what's going on. I'd really like now to really get to grips with the language and deepen my understanding that way. I'm not going to, but I'd like to, which the manga version didn't sort of achieve with me. I don't feel like there's too much to say in regards to the plot. It's basically about a guy who is doing really well for himself and then meets these witches who say like, oh, you're going to be king and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And it's basically the story of those events becoming true. But what actually happens is that he sort of, I don't know what the word is, sets things in motion, I suppose. He murders people to become king, and that then obviously murdering people does something funny to your brain, and yeah, it's basically his descent into madness, I think is how I would describe it. I don't know whether it's because it was just because of the version that I've read, or whether it's Macbeth in itself, but I feel like this is the play that I've read where I feel I'd most like to see a live play. I sort of feel like it's the most intriguing story, I feel like it's the most dramatic, the most sort of exciting, but again, I don't know if that's just because I read it in a different version, so I'm already sort of half seeing it. I don't feel like I have an awful lot to say about it because I didn't read it in Shakespearean language as it was intended. I feel like, I can't really talk about the themes and what have you, but I'll be really, really interested to see what other people have to say. But I really, really rated this version. I think it is a fantastic way of making Shakespeare accessible, which I don't think that the manga version did. I really like that it has the sort of 3 different levels, and I can see how, as a teacher or as somebody who was interested in Shakespeare but overwhelmed by it, it's a really good stepping stone, and actually you could choose the level that felt most appropriate to you. I just wish my library had had all 3 levels, because I think I would have probably gone with the original text, but then maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed that as much. But this is a cracking version, so if you've never read any Shakespeare and you're feeling like you kind of like to want to get involved but you're intimidated, then I definitely recommend these graphic novel versions. What does it say? Classical comics. Bringing classics to life. Definitely recommend it. Give it a whirl. If nothing else, although you miss out on the lot that you get from the language, it gives you the story. And actually, fundamentally, that's what we're all here for. That's why we all read books, because we love a cracking story. So you get that. What else do you want? If you've read Macbeth this week, then let me know. Please feel free to link me to your videos or tell me you've done it and I'll go check them out, because I'm really interested to see how other people found it. And if you've read any other graphic novels or that sort of thing, let me know, because I feel like it's something I always want to delve more into, but I need recommendations because sometimes they don't do it for me. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.